Welcome back. This video is going to go over the teacher's role as a facilitator in TRAILS and also how to remove a hold from a pretest or a post-test. So going into teacher's role as a facilitator in TRAILS, basically you have two major roles as a teacher or support staff for students in TRAILS. Your first duty is to monitor student progress, meaning make sure students are making progress in their courses. An estimate for adequate course progress is for a unit to be completed every 1 to 3 hours. This all depends on the content of the course, if it's a math course, English course. It also depends on whether the student has an accommodation, 504, IEP, ESOL, etc. Number two, you'll need to be able to clear flags and apply appropriate remediation for students. Those are your two major roles as you facilitate student remediation and TRAILS. Now, monitoring student progress and TRAILS, there's a few things that you can do for this to keep an eye on students as they work. Obviously, the best practices we have for when you're in the brick and mortar building is to be up and monitoring students actively every 15 minutes, be up and communicating with students, asking them if they need help, those kind of things. That's the number one indicator. But we also have some online features that allow you to do this through TRAILS. You saw those in the intro video, but going over it again, you can view them from students. You can actually go and look up a student. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and look up student 130. And when I go in, this will be an indicator to show that this student is currently working in 9th Lit Comp A. Okay. If you're working virtually, resupply, Quest, etc. If you're closed for the evening, this is a good indicator for you to go in and check, see what students are doing. From here, you can actually go in and click on the course. And when you get in here, you can see the status of where the student is. Okay, so if you go to this particular lesson quiz, this is lesson 1 quiz, and you'll see the student attempted it 2 times. And at this point, they're stuck in limbo until you assist them with this. But this is just one example. You can also go to courses. This is the traditional way of doing it. A lot of our staff would do this. In grad point, when we had grad point, you would go into the grade book and just observe what's going on. Again, you have the active. You can ascend it or descend it, and you'll see that student 130 is actively working. Again, if it's in person, you already know this, but if it's virtually, in any case, you'll be able to see by the green indicator. If you mouse over it, it'll say online. Also, just go and navigate to that student. This is another way to monitor their progress. And you also have reports. You can always run a report for students to see their progress. I won't go into too much detail on this. Another video will come later. But you can view the student activity log. This is a very in-depth information showing when they log on, when they log off, what they worked on. Student activity summary is more of a percent complete with overall time in course, similar to what GradPoint had. Student activity details is a much more in-depth click-by-click option. Just to give you an idea, if I go back to that student 130, you can also, when you view their actual current courses, you can scroll down and see the recent activities here. This is pretty much everything that the student does, clicking and not clicking, those kind of things. It will give you exact timestamps on what they're doing. Okay. You can always click on this recent activities and it will expand it into a further page depending on how far a student is into the course. It might take that a little while to load. I will note here that both student and teacher activities are recorded here. So if you're removing holds from pretest or post-test, if you're applying remediation, allowing retry, all of that information will show up here. Okay. So going into a little bit of information for you, we have pretest procedures for trails. As you all know, when we were closed for COVID, we had to remove pretest from GradPoint due to the fact that we used to use a password for students to access pretest and post-test. And of course, once they had that password, they could take as many of those as they wanted to. With our new learning management system, we've implemented a hold and unhold an assessment where you can remove a hold so a student can access that assessment, and then you can add the hold back if they didn't finish it or if you don't want them to actually take that assessment. So I'm going to read some things here verbatim when it comes to pretest procedures and trails. This is very important. We are broken down into three major components of remediation. Okay. In trails, we have pretest, we have lessons and lesson quizzes, and finally we have post-test. Okay. Each one of those areas has their own type of remediation. Okay. Pretest is self-driven. All right. All pretests are mastery driven, meaning there is no set passing score in the program. In each unit, there are objectives associated to each lesson, and there are 5 questions per objective on every pretest. A student shows mastery on a given objective by getting 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5 of the questions correct for that objective. If a student shows mastery on an objective at the pretest, they can skip the lesson associated with that objective. Likewise, if they do not show mastery, they will be assigned that lesson and they need to work through it. It says if the students are assigned any lesson at the pretest, they must complete that lesson. There is no set passing score at the pretest level. Keep this in mind, a student must master every objective to completely skip a unit at the pretest level. Big one here is students are to receive absolutely no help at any time on any pretest and are never allowed to have more than one attempt on any pretest. Please keep this in mind. Again, with all of our pretests, these must be done in person. Students must be in the brick and mortar building, and you must be able to observe them while they're taking the pretest. If they're working virtually, if they're in resupply or quest, they are not authorized at any time to take a pretest. Keep that in mind. Again, never help a student on a pretest. We're going to break down the lesson procedures for trails. After the pretest, the student must work through all assigned lessons, and the student must score at least an 80% or higher on the end of lesson quiz before the program will allow them to move forward. Students' content understanding should be monitored closely during the lessons and lesson quizzes to make sure students are prepared for post-test. Seek to actively teach content to students during the lessons. This gets back into the 2 major responsibilities as a facilitator in trails. Make sure that you are up and around every 15 minutes minimum, interacting with students. If they're struggling with lessons or lesson quizzes, this is a perfect time for you to be able to assist them with any questions they may have. When it comes to pretest and post-test, I want to emphasize the fact that you are not to help students at any time on any pretest or any post-test, okay? Those are the more in-depth assessments that are taken, and we want to measure the students' knowledge on what they've learned from the unit or lessons that they're required to go in and do. Please keep that in mind, okay? We say this because, again, if a student has a question at the lesson level, if you have 3 or 4 lessons in a unit, it's best to tackle those issues or questions or confusion at the lesson level and not waiting until the post-test. Those are usually the cases where you have multiple attempts on a post-test because students did not grasp those concepts when they were actually in the lesson. So keep that in mind. Be flexible, work with the students. That's why you're there. All lessons are active for students to review after mastery. In other words, once they get that 80% or higher, they can always go back and revisit those lessons as needed. Even before a post test, if they want to refresh, if they just want to go in and double check, make sure they're ready, they're always welcome to go back into the lessons they've already completed and review that material. Keep this in mind that no curriculum, either trails lessons or component lessons, are to be deviated from without direct written permission from our Director of Teaching and Learning, Jennifer Glover. Please keep that in mind, all right? Those are the main best practices when it does come to remediation for pre-tests in lessons, lesson quizzes, on post-test. That same manner goes into effect. Um, and now I'm going to go ahead and show you how to release a hold on an assessment, okay? In nearly all cases, it's going to be a pretest that a student is going to want you to release the hold on. They've come to the class, they're ready to take the pretest. Is usually in the case of a new student, they come in, they're going to be ready to start a course. And the very first thing in 95% of our courses is a pretest, okay? They're not able to take that pretest until you remove that hold. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and use student 130 as an example for this. Just going into this very quickly. All right, and then I'm going to go to 9th Lit B. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to go into the course in question. Students usually going to tell you, hey, I need you to unlock the hold, remove the hold from the Unit 8 pretest. I'm ready to take it. In this case, with it being the pretest, you're going to go ahead and click on it, and then you're going to go ahead and release the hold. You're going to go ahead and confirm this. And what it's going to do is it's going to unlock it for the student. The hold is removed. It automatically unlocks that pretest for the student to begin. All right. All the student has to do then on their browser, on their Chromebook, is to refresh the page, and they'll be able to access that pretest. Okay. Keep that in mind. Same's going to go for the post test. I am going to go ahead and show it to you here. The only difference between a pre and post test is you never unlock or remove a hold from a post test until you verify that the student is ready to take that post test. And I'll get into that a little bit more. But in this case, if this student says, hey, I'm ready to take the Unit 8 post test, when you go in to test student 130 in 9th Lit Comp B, you're going to already see, no, this student's not ready, because all of these are locked and no progress has been made. So this is a good little indicator for you. Don't go unlocking and removing holds from post-test or any assessment for that matter until you verify. In this case, if a student is ready, you're going to have check marks all the way down to the post-test, okay? Again, more on that on the next video. I'm going to go and wrap that up. This is a good stopping point for you to, if you need to revisit on the releasing hold, how to do that, feel free to do so. Another video will be coming shortly.